Good evening and welcome to Current Issues. I'm your host, Hesham Tillawi. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. We have an exciting and full program for you tonight. To start with, the Supreme Court today has affirmed the right of the American people and American citizens to carry and own a gun inside your home. In a 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court struck down the D.C. law. And by the way, this was the first time in 70 years that the Supreme Court actually takes the gun control and gun issues and gun laws into consideration. And they have said that the D.C. law prohibiting the ownership of a gun inside your home was unconstitutional. Now, the Second Amendment, ladies and gentlemen, gave the people in the United States the right to actually own a gun, but it did say in a well-regulated militia. Well, 5 of them decided that a well-regulated militia does not mean that you have to actually be a part of a militia. The other 4 decided that you have to be in a regulated militia, in a militia that is regulated by the state. But actually, that's not what the Second Amendment is all about. The Second Amendment, if we understand how the Constitution of the United States and how did the United States become United States, we will understand that these states were sovereign states, independent states that made up the Union of the United States. And in case if the federal government decides one day to disarm the people, the states kept the right to own guns and keep guns in the hands of the people. Now, I don't know how you feel about it. Of course, these regulations, were made, or the Second Amendment was made for people living in the 18th century. I don't know actually the 17th century, but I don't know how you would feel, actually the 18th century. I don't know how you feel about it now, but that's not what we're not going to discuss gun control here. We're just telling you that the Supreme Court said that you can own a gun. Of course, other regulations you will have to adhere to, the type of gun that you can carry in your home and what you can do with that gun. But I'm sure a lot of people in the pro-gun are celebrating and others are not. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like that people are, the war started between Obama and McCain. Obama, a few days ago, he was given a speech at a particular gathering. And the seal, the presidential seal that he had on the podium actually was not the seal of the United States, the presidential seal of the United States. He had changed a little bit in it. And we have a picture of that. We'll show you now what we're talking about. And the people got on him about it, that he's already changed in the seal, and that he had changed it, he's changing America, etc., etc. Number one, he's not the president, so whatever he does, we should not say that he's going to change America. But, he took the words that said, that Greek words that said from all became one or something like that, into something that says yes we can in Greek. And that was a one-time deal, for a one-time event, and they were not going to use it again. But of course, people started saying that, this is side by side the 2 seals, the one for the president seal now, the American president seal now, and the one that Obama came up with, or his staff, for that particular occasion, for that particular speech. But leave it to the right wing and the people who don't like him. They will start saying that he's changing America already. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last week, if you remember, we told you that Barack Obama will be the next president of the United States unless 2 things happened. And those 2 things were, what I told you on Thursday. If Bush produces bin Laden, because last week or the week before he was in London and he actually solicited the help of the British Special Forces to find bin Laden. So I told you, if he comes up with bin Laden, then probably McCain will be the president, or if we are attacked. Now, on Monday, what do we have? Charles Black, one of his top advisors, he says the same thing. He said that in case of a terrorist attack, if we are attacked, then that attack will be a benefit to McCain. And this is exactly what he said. He declared that a terrorist attack like September 11, 2001 would be good for his candidate's electoral prospects. He said certainly would be a big advantage to him, talking about McCain. So this Charles Black, and we're going to see, we have a video with Charles Black talking about something else, but Charles Black thinks that if we are attacked, you see, the thing is, and also he went further to say that the assassination of the former Pakistani Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, that it had assisted McCain in winning some of the primaries at that time. So, these people know what they're doing, and they know exactly what needs to be done. So in order for McCain, and I'm telling you right now, in order for McCain to win the presidency, we would have to be attacked by somebody. And it is not, I don't put it past them to do a false flag operation just so McCain can win the presidency of the United States, because he will not be able to beat Obama. Obama is up front, double digits, even though some of these polls you see, they're like neck and neck, but it is not. Obama is double digits ahead of McCain. And if things continue to be, if they play ball, of course, this is not really, they're not playing by the rules. But if they do continue with nothing happens, if we're not attacked, Obama will be the next president of the United States. A lot of people think that, why is he pushing Obama? Why is he pushing Obama? Well, I'm not. But I'm not pushing McCain. You give me somebody else, and I will vote for him. But right now, Obama, I don't know if he's the answer, but I know McCain is not. And since we're only going to have two, one of them will be the next president, I'm taking my chances with Obama. That's it. Very simple. There is nothing, no other reason than McCain cannot do it. And we're going to show you some interesting videos about McCain. But the first video, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to show you a video with Charles Black, actually, where he is saying that McCain is no Washington insider. My God, the guy been there since George Washington, and he's not a Washington insider. And then talking about, you see, these people can only win if they scare you. He's going to talk that, McCain will be the best one to fight the Islamic terrorist, the Islamo-fascist. So they're going to scare you with that and say, you know what, we need McCain to fight it. And then they're going to tell you that he's going to control government spending. And when we come back from the first clip, you will see where McCain is getting his economic advisory from. Now, let's go ahead and go to the phones very quickly with Liberty. I'm going to have plenty of stuff to go through, but I don't want to keep her on because that's going to take time. So let me put Liberty on. Go ahead, Liberty.
Well, congratulations. We can collectively breathe sigh of relief with the reimplementation writ of habeas corpus and upholding our Second Amendment. Additionally, I want to comment on the seal in regards to with the website. What is the difference between the Western White House in Crawford, Texas? It's the neocon warmongers. They're imploding, and I'm elated about that. Charlie Black needs to be resigned and pigeonholed, and I appreciate the job you're doing. I, as you, although not a registered Republican, I'm independent. However, I will be supporting Barack Obama and his VP, and I thank you for the job you're doing, Dr. T.
Thank you.
Peace be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the call. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go. Pay attention, pay close attention now. These are different clips that we got from all over. We have done a lot of research, and tonight we're going to show you different video clips. Pay a lot of attention. We'll talk about those as we go. We're going to show it like one at a time, and then we'll talk. Let's go to the first one it's an interview with Charles Black. This was like a couple of months ago during the South Carolina primary. Let's go to the first video.
Well, thanks so much. We are joined by Charlie Black, a senior advisor to the McCain campaign. Charlie, good evening. Sorry, it didn't go better for your guy. Mitt Romney just said that tonight was a victory of optimism over Washington-style pessimism. He also talked a lot about Washington insiders with a clear implication. He was talking about John McCain. Your reaction?
Well, congratulations to Governor Romney. He deserves credit for running a very good campaign in Michigan. He maximized the native son theme, and he gets all the credit tonight. But John McCain's no Washington insider, and Governor Romney couldn't find a soul inside the Beltway who would tell him that. South Carolina's up now. In South Carolina, the biggest issue is who can best lead us to victory in the war against radical Islamic extremism. Who's the best suited to be commander-in-chief? McCain has a lead here in South Carolina because that's the top issue. And also, people believe that we need to get government spending under control. And in South Carolina, they know John McCain's the man to do that.
Charlie, let me ask you about that, because in the exit poll in Michigan, and obviously it's a different state than South Carolina, more than 50% said the economy was the top issue, not national security. Here in Washington, I don't have to tell you, an awful lot of talk. Nancy Pelosi is going to sit down with the Republican leader John Boehner tomorrow to talk about a bailout. We hear the president's going to talk about government stimulus and the State of the Union. If the economy becomes the top issue in voters' minds, not just in South Carolina, but down the road, not national security, does that favor Mitt Romney over John McCain?
Well, I don't think so. Senator McCain has a plan, too, to help us prevent a recession. First of all, he says we need to cut taxes. He has a plan to eliminate the alternative minimum tax. But also, Senator McCain makes the point that if we control government spending, cut government spending, that will keep interest rates low, allow people to start businesses, allow them to pay their mortgages easier, allow them to buy cars, which would help Michigan, by the way. The McCain plan for avoiding a recession and generating economic growth is supported by Phil Gramm, Jack Kemp, and most of the most prominent economic conservatives in the Republican Party.
Charlie, you and I have known each other more than a quarter century, going back to the Reagan years. I'm going to ask you to the degree that it's possible to take off your hat as a McCain advisor and just be a Republican wise man for me. What do you make of this? How do you assess a race in which there seems to be no momentum? Whoever wins in one state loses in the next state.
Well, you know, three in a row, each with a different winner. It is unusual. It's never quite happened before, but I do think history will prevail in that the two most important primaries are always New Hampshire and South Carolina. Anyone who's ever won two of the three, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, has gone on to win the nomination. I think that'll still hold this year, and by the way, I think John McCain will win New Hampshire and South Carolina.
Well, let me ask you about that as a final question, Charlie, because Mike Huckabee just gave a speech in which he flatly declared that he is going to win South Carolina. Scope that race out for us, McCain versus Huckabee for the win in South Carolina this Saturday night.
Well, most of the polls show Senator McCain with a lead, not a large lead, but a lead over Governor Huckabee, and then Senator Thompson, Governor Ron.
Okay. Well, the main points, he's no Washington insider. Of course, we don't believe that. And, you know, radical Islamic extremist. Of course, we will be hearing this many, many times. But the one I want you to really listen to, who was his advisors, his economic advisors? Phil Gramm of Texas. Now, in the next clip, we're going to show you why the gas prices are the way they are. And the way I'm going to set the stage here so you will understand what you're hearing. Enron, who Graham was, he very much set up Enron in Washington. And he very much protected Enron in Washington. And his wife, Wendy Graham, she was the head of the commission, the Futures Trading Commission. The Futures Trading Commission. And Enron had set up something that is called the Enron loophole, where, and that's how Enron made all that illegal money. You remember a few years back when they robbed all these old people of their money and they sold Californians electricity at 3 times the price? Exactly what Enron set up, where Phil Graham and his wife had helped them set up. Exactly the oil companies and the oil speculators. See, it is not the Saudis, it is not the Arabs who raise their prices. It is happening in New York from the Morgan Stanleys, from the Rothschilds, from all these people, the bankers with money, because of that loophole that Enron opened up in Congress, protected by Phil Graham, who's the top economic advisor for no one else but our, well, not our president, but McCain, the presumptive Republican nominee. Now, McCain, a couple of years ago, wanted to take out that Enron loophole. But now he's running for president. Now Phil Graham is one of his top supporters and one of his top advisors. You will see in the next clip why the gas prices are high and what does McCain have anything to do with it. Let's go to the second clip.
Does not know much about the economy, and for parading around those advisors of his who he says do know something about the economy. Our third story tonight, a countdown special report on the price of gas, and how McCain's chief economic advisor, among others, helped create and defend pivotal legislation that unleashed speculators to run up gas prices. It is, in essence, a legalized form of insider trading, deregulation that lets speculators overwhelm trading in oil futures, those complicated contracts that let commercial users of oil hedge their bets about future price and supply fluctuations by agreeing to prices and delivery dates ahead of time. Since this legislation passed, gasoline prices have more than doubled, and commodity traders have made tens of millions of dollars, devastating thousands of small companies that deal in oil and creating the risk of a speculative bubble popping. How does McCain fit in? The road connecting him to $4 gas begins with Enron. Soon after Enron's birth as a power supplier in the 1980s, CEO Ken Lay decided he could make more money betting on electricity futures, especially if government regulators didn't stop him from cornering the market and gaming the system. Under the first President Bush, an obscure agency called the Commodity Futures Trading Commission obliged Ken Lay. The CFTC chairwoman, Wendy Graham, left Enron alone. When Bill Clinton beat Bush, it took only 1 week before Enron asked Graham to lock in her hands-off position as official CFTC policy. Graham started the process. The CFTC approved it after she left on Clinton's inauguration day. 5 weeks later, she took a part-time post on Enron's board of directors and wound up earning more than $900,000 over the next decade. Clinton never undid Graham's changes. Fast forward to the year 2000 and Bush v. Gore. In the chaos of constitutional crisis, Enron got a law passed containing what is now known as the Enron loophole, where Graham deregulated individual trades. The Enron loophole deregulated entire markets, online markets. Enron had just started its own online market and set its sights on the state of California. Over the next 6 months, California suffered 38 rolling blackouts as Enron used artificial shortages, bogus deals, and total knowledge of the market as sole owner of its own online market to treble California's energy bills. In the dark, regulators had less power than California did, leaving Enron laughing about it.
What money you guys stole from those poor grandmothers of California? Yeah, Grandma Millie, man. Yeah, now she wants f***ing money back for all the power you charged jammed right up her $250 a megawatt hour.
The Enron loophole applied to all energy commodities, oil, propane, natural gas. So today, oil futures are driven by speculators, free from any regulatory oversight. Now you can't just blame OPEC anymore. British Petroleum paid $303 million to settle charges. It cornered the propane market in 2004, inflating heating costs for 7 million American homes. 2 years ago, a Republican Senate report recognized what speculators have done and blamed the Enron loophole. 2 weeks ago, the Senate Commerce Committee heard testimony about the Enron loophole's effect on the price of a barrel of oil.
The speculators are not just placing bets in these futures markets. They're saying, gosh, if I can control the price of heating oil, I'm going to go out and buy heating oil. So you have Morgan Stanley is the biggest heating oil owner in New England.
The idea is to put the words energy back in so that we can actually go back to where we were before this, what Dr. Cooper calls the foolish but affectionately called Enron loophole, got put into the law?
Yes, overnight that will bring down the price of crude oil. You get at least a 25% drop in the cost of oil and a corresponding drop in the cost of gasoline. Some people estimate 50%.
The speculative bubble in petroleum markets has cost the average American household about $1,500 in increased gasoline, natural gas, and electricity expenditures in the 2 years since the Senate Permanent Committee on Investigations first called attention to the problem. The Senate knew about this problem 2 years ago.
John McCain seemed to understand this problem even earlier. In 2002 and 2003, he voted with the minority to close the Enron loophole. We're all tainted by Enron's money, he said. Enron made a sound investment in Washington. It did them a lot of good. Where they really do well is around the edges, the insertion of an amendment, the Enron loophole, into an appropriations bill. But for most of this campaign, McCain has offered explanations other than the influence of speculators and remedies other than regulations.
We can develop alternate energy sources.
Will alternative energy fix things without closing the Enron loophole?
And what's going to happen when you get all this new clean energy is the banks are going to go into those markets and rob those guys blind like they're robbing the gas station owners and heating oil dealers in this country right now.
What about McCain's idea to stop filling America's strategic reserve?
These institutions acting as a herd are accumulating much larger, setting aside much larger reserves than the strategic reserve is. It's multiple.
John McCain doesn't talk about the Enron loophole anymore. One McCain advisor reportedly said he no longer even has a position on it. And when the bipartisan Farm Bill shut the Enron loophole last month, John McCain opposed the Farm Bill, citing its spending levels. What changed? Since 2006, John McCain's top economic advisor has been former Texas Senator Phil Gramm, husband of the former CFTC head who then joined Enron. McCain chaired Graham's 1996 presidential race with Ken Lay as regional chairman. It was Graham who passed the Enron loophole, partially written by Enron itself, with no hearings, with no debate. It was Graham who stopped Democrats from closing the Enron loophole, and it was Graham who became vice chairman at the Swiss financial firm UBS in 2002, less than a year after UBS bought the shattered remains of Enron's energy trading arm. Federal lobbying forms reviewed by Countdown show that Graham lobbied Congress about commodity trading rules in 2006, and that his company, specifically his former aide John Sabercool, now a UBS lobbyist, lobbied the Senate as recently as last year against the Close the Enron Loophole Act, without actually calling it that. McCain's finance co-chair, Wayne Berman, lobbied just last year for Chevron and for the American Petroleum Institute against the Price Gouging Prevention Act. And this year, the lobbying firm for which Berman serves as managing director was hired by the New York Mercantile Exchange to lobby against the Close the Enron Loophole Act. In fact, McCain's top campaign advisor, controversial lobbyist Charlie Black, was paid $140,000 by J.P. Morgan back in 2000 for the sole purpose of lobbying Congress to pass the Commodity Futures Modernization Act, the same act that contained the Enron loophole. McCain skipped this month's hearing on gas prices, but this week
The neighborhoods are safe.
Okay. Well, I hope you understood what that was all about. It was straightforward, but what it boils down to is McCain 2 years ago, he wanted to shut down that Enron loophole, which allows speculators to basically buy and own oil and then sell it to us at a higher price. Exactly what Enron did when they were allowed by Wendy Graham, the wife of Phil Graham of Texas, who is top advisor for McCain, when she allowed Enron to do that to those poor people and charge them high prices and make all that money. Now McCain, 2 years ago, he wanted to shut that law, take that out, but now he's all for it. Well, he's not saying anything, but he's not opposing it. Now he's saying, let's go find other sources of energy. No. Take that out, gas prices will drop down to half. Take that loophole out. Make oil a utility where people cannot go and speculate on it. The speculators in New York are the ones who are raising the prices, and they are the ones who are stacking the money, your money. At first it was Enron with California and a couple of other states and Nevada. Now they're doing it to all of us all over the country. Something that McCain supports. Something that McCain supports. Now, let's figure out this McCain guy. I mean, you know, sometimes he tells you one thing, the next day he tells you something else. And he's flip-flopping big time. But I really think it's, you know, with all due respect to older people, I think it probably has to do with his age, because he forgets what he says, and then the next day he'll say something completely opposite. And also, you know, to me, at first, humanity or, you know, technology or modernization or education, whatever you want to call it, they started with ABCs. So if you knew your ABCs, you were fine. That means you were educated. And later on, you know, with the science and technology, if you knew your XYZ, then you were smart person. You know, you knew your ABCs, then your XYZs. That means you're educated, you are scientific, you have some math knowledge, etc., etc. You're a smart guy. Well, now, added to that is WWW. If you don't know much about the internet, well, guess what? You are way behind. If you don't know how to get on the computer, even just to check your emails, if you don't know what kind of system you're using, etc., you're way behind. Let's take a look at this clip, and you will see how McCain is flip-flopping and how backward the man is. Let's go.
We walk down the streets with no body armor on.
McCain's delegation was guarded by more than 100 American soldiers with 3 Black Hawk helicopters and 2 Apache gunships overhead.
General Petraeus goes out there almost every day in an unarmed Humvee.
Because I checked with General Petraeus' people overnight, and they said that he never goes out in anything less than an up-armored Humvee.
Well, I'm not saying that they could go without protection. I've been involved in every national security issue for the last 20 years. I am prepared. I am prepared, need no on-the-job training. Al-Qaeda is going back into Iran and receiving training.
You said that the Iranians, which mean Al-Qaeda.
I'm sorry, the Iranians are training extremists, not Al-Qaeda. I come here and tell these people, never again will a disaster, either natural or man-made, be mishandled in this fashion.
McCain said if he were in charge during Katrina, he would have been on the ground helping.
The morning that Katrina made land, mere hours after it hit, where was Senator McCain? Celebrating his own birthday with President Bush right next to Air Force One on the ground in Arizona.
Senator McCain, you have said repeatedly, quote, I know a lot less about economics than I do about military and foreign policy issues. I still need to be educated.
Actually, I don't know where you got that quote from.
I got it from John McCain, and here it is. Quote, I'm going to be honest. I know a lot less about economics than I do about military and foreign policy issues. I still need to be educated.
I've got to convince people because of my extensive background on the economy and knowledge. I don't have that kind of expertise to know exactly whether he has cut interest rates sufficiently or not.
Senator McCain, are Americans better off than they were 8 years ago?
I think you could argue that Americans overall are better off.
Senator, you do not believe we are better off by any means than we were 8 years ago.
Oh, no. No. We let spending get completely out of control. Of course those tax cuts have to remain permanent. I voted against the tax cuts.
You voted to extend them?
I voted to extend them. I voted against the tax cut. I've always been for tax cuts. We either keep our word or we don't keep our word. I intend to keep my word to the American people.
Dr. thank you so much for joining us for Yahoo Up Close and Political. Couple questions. We just need a one-word answer. Mac or PC?
PC.
I use PC.
I got a PC, but my sons swear by their Macs, so I'll probably convert.
Neither. I am a illiterate that has to rely on my wife for all of the assistance that I can get.
Voters in New Hampshire and Iowa had a chance to meet the Republican candidates up close and personal. That's why they call it retail politics. Just days before Super Tuesday, we wanted the rest of the country to have the same chance. So we asked the candidates little questions and got big answers that revealed a lot about their personalities. Take a look.
Your favorite movie this year?
This year? Have seen no movies. I've been campaigning. So I'm going to have to dig back in the past. Favorite movie, Casablanca.
This year? I'm not even sure I saw a movie this year. Probably the last one my wife and I saw was the Johnny Cash movie. So, but I don't get to the movie very often.
This year, let's see. It was the Bourne movie this year. It was the Bourne Ultimatum, Bourne Supremacy. I don't know which one it was, but the latest Bourne movie was the favorite this year.
My favorite movie forever is Viva Zapata. Elia Kazan's part of his trilogy, On the Waterfront, Streetcar Named Desire, and Viva Zapata. Marlon Brando, Gene Peters, Anthony Quinn. I still think it's a great classic.
Viva Zapata? How old is this guy? Streetcar Named Desire? Oh, boy. We either keep our word or we don't keep our word. Well, which word? You know, he said that on the street of Baghdad, he used to go, without any protection. And then, when he went on the street of Baghdad, he had, a full body armor and 2 helicopters on top, hundreds of soldiers around. Don't think about sending him an email. You might want to call the Pony Express because it makes the run to Washington on the 27th of every month. You might want to send it a couple of months before. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's go to Viva Zapata. I bet you probably, maybe most. Have you heard of Viva Zapata? How old are you?
65.
You're 65. And you never heard of Viva Zapata? Okay. I don't know how many people out there heard of Viva Zapata. Okay? I don't know. Let's see if Freedom knows Viva Zapata. Freedom.
Dr. Tillawi, I want to thank you for what you just showed tonight, because on my radio show this morning, I will also show Keith Olbermann with the connections of John Cain to Phil Graham, because of the fact, look, I want to ask you a question.
I want to ask you a question before.
Economy, and he was on the Commerce Committee at one time. I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
In your opinion, what will the price of gas be if when John McCain on January 2009, when he swore into office, what will the price of gas be in the month later if John McCain with Phil Graham and Wendy Graham and all of them get in office? Will the American people be that stupid to put these people in office? But if they put them in office, in your opinion, with Phil Graham and Wendy Graham being his economic advisors, what will the price of gasoline be for the American people comes January 2009 after McCain swear in? And thank you very much.
Freedom.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll answer that one if you answer my question. Have you heard of Viva Zapata?
With Marlon Brando? Dr. Tillawi, I saw Viva Zapata back in 1963, I think.
Okay.
That's how long ago I saw it.
Well,
okay? I was just a kid, okay?
Okay, well, that's his favorite movie.
You're joking.
Well, that's the clip I showed. You probably were listening to me. You weren't paying too much attention to the TV. That's his favorite movie. They asked him, "What's your favorite movie? What's the last movie you saw?" And he said, Viva Zapata was his favorite. I have no idea. I mean, I know who Marlon Brando is.
Hold it, Dr. Tillawi, since Viva Zapata, we've got the internet, we've got small digital screens.
Yeah, but he doesn't know. He doesn't know anything about the internet, though.
But how he's going to be the president in the 21st century?
Don't send him an email.
Okay.
Don't say he knows nothing about emails.
Okay, well, please tell the American people who's looking at you right now on the internet and locally what you feel the price of gas is going to be.
$8.
$8.
$8.
$8 a gallon?
$8 a gallon.
And who are we going to blame that on? The speculators or the Arabs?
Speculators. Because they're the ones making the money, the speculators. Now, if we know who owns the banks and who owns most of the industries and who owns the media and who owns all that, now people are going to look at me and say, oh, he's one of those conspiracy. No, this has nothing to do with conspiracy. This is greed. This is people who want to control, because with money, with lots of money, they are able to control the lives of millions and millions of Americans.
So, Dr. Tillawi, wait a while. You're telling me that the same people, the Morgan Stanleys and all of that, who caused the current foreclosure crisis that we have in these home mortgages, they are the same funds that are speculating on the oil market right now?
They're the ones who own it.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Wake up and learn how the world works. It's not as easy as you see it. It's not just put these pretty people on TV and have them run for the President of the United States. No. There are huge forces, huge money out there that are clashing. Okay? Plenty of money that are clashing. And it depends on who wins. Well, I'll tell you what. Today I was working at the office getting ready for the show, and that's when I was reading about the Supreme Court decision to actually allow people to own guns, and all of a sudden I get a phone call, and that phone call was from my son, who's with us here in the studio, and he goes, now you guys can't show him, yeah, he's a big boy. Now, he goes, Baba, and that's Arabic for daddy. He goes, can I wear my army suit today? So I said, sure, why not? You know, the Supreme Court said we can have, you know, it's okay to be a militia. And I said, sure, why not? So he's right there with his army suit. And so why did you want to wear the suit today? You didn't know about the Supreme Court decision, did you?
No.
Why did you want to wear the uniform, the army uniform?
Because I never wore it.
You never wore it before?
No.
Wow. Okay. You know, yeah, pick up your head like that, because that thing was showing, you know, it had like your cab. You might want to just pull it so people can see your pretty eyes. No, pull it up instead of down. There you go. Okay. So you never wore this before? You wanted to wear it now?
Yes.
Okay. Now, last time you didn't talk to people when I told you tell them good night. Tonight we're going to do it?
Yes.
Very good. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what we going now, if you noticed, now we're getting back to the program. We'll come back to you, mister. Okay, you know, he's becoming a fixture, and I'm enjoying him on the set very much. He's becoming a fixture here on the show. So let's see, maybe he will be sitting here one day telling you what his daddy is telling you. He'll carry on the torch of truth. You know, I was so amazed when I read the news about Charles Black, and when he said that if we are attacked, if there's a terrorist attack in the United States, that this will be good for McCain. And this is what they want. This is what these people want. You know, they're going to do everything possible to have McCain win this race. And that's what scares me. It scares me to death, because they will have people assassinated. You know, if he mentioned in that interview with Fortune magazine that was made public Monday, and I said this on Thursday, that unless we are attacked, unless there is a war, John McCain will not be the next president of the United States. So, and also he mentioned something that makes me really wonder what they are thinking, because they said in the assassination of Benazir Bhutto that was good for McCain because it pushed him in the primaries. And you start wondering, was Benazir Bhutto's, you might want to mute his mic because I think it's making a little noise. Was Benazir Bhutto's assassination fabricated by these people? And who are they thinking of assassinating to push McCain even further? Or what are they thinking of doing in the United States as a false flag operation so McCain can become the president of the United States? You know, their game is becoming so easy to predict. But there is one guy that is really, and he was with McCain in one of the clips, he corrected him when McCain said Iran supporting or training Al-Qaeda, whatever. Joe Lieberman was right there with him. Now, Joe Lieberman is a Jewish senator from Connecticut who's a Democrat, but he is more, he's more of a Republican than a Democrat. But he still called himself a Democrat. He was 100% for the war in Iraq, because Iraq was good, the war in Iraq was good for Israel. This man has Israel's interest first before the United States' interest. This man might become the vice president of the United States if McCain is elected. This man might switch parties in the last minute, so he will be the vice president. Now remember, he was Al Gore's vice president, and they almost made it. They want this man to be the president of the United States. He cannot be elected the president of the United States, but they're going to squeeze him somewhere, and this is their chance to do it with McCain. Let's show you this clip about Joe Lieberman.
You're rallying for the Republicans. You're supporting John McCain. Why not go and caucus with the Republicans? Lieberman took a swipe at the Democrats.
I think the Democratic Party, to its damage, has left that tradition of a strong foreign and defense policy, and that includes the leading Democratic presidential candidate.
Maybe the most interesting thing today was from Senator Joe Lieberman of Connecticut, who simply said that the president shouldn't listen to members of Congress, that he's the commander-in-chief and he should make his decisions. The first sign of an unlikely political love affair blossoming in Washington came at the beginning of this year, when the president bestowed a little smooch. Last week, it seemed no one at the White House could stop talking about the object of their affections.
Joe Lieberman is the most steadfast supporter of the Iraq War among the Democrats, and one of the most steadfast in either party.
We can't leave it at that. I think we've got to be prepared to take aggressive military action against the Iranians.
Senator Lieberman every day is calling for a war against Iran and probably Syria.
I think he should just come all the way and become a Republican.
I'm urging Republican and independent voters here in New Hampshire to support John McCain. Once I made the decision that John McCain, in my opinion, is best prepared to be the president we need for the next 4 years, I'm not going to hold back. The spokesperson for Hamas would say they would welcome the election of Senator Obama. It really does raise the question, why?
Who would he pick? John McCain as vice president? After seeing Joe Lieberman's speech Sunday night, I really wonder whether he will pick Joe Lieberman.
Joe Lieberman, come home to the Republican Party. Please, can you rule out that you may switch to the Republican Party?
I wouldn't rule it out.
Joe Lieberman grew up in John Daly's Connecticut, Democratic vice presidential nominee. You're saying you might vote Republican in 2008?
Okay. Well, this man, he's Israel's first, and then the United States, so it can do Israel's dirty work. What he wants to do is he wants the United States to attack Iran for Israel. He wants George Bush to go it alone. He's telling them that, hey, look, you don't need Congress approval for this. This man is pushing for war against Iran. Let's be careful here. They fooled us the first time. Do not let them fool us again. You can't fool people once, and that's shame on you. If you fool them twice, shame on them. That's what George Bush couldn't say when he said, you can fool the people, well, you can't fool the fool twice. Well, but that's the one. Don't let them fool us again, saying Iran, Iran. But Iran, Joe Lieberman wants us to attack Iran because it is good for Israel. Joe Lieberman is pushing McCain and wants McCain to be the president because he knows if McCain is the president, we will definitely have a war with Israel. It's not our fight. They picked that fight. It's not ours. We lost many people for the war that they duped us into going to Iraq. When we went to Iraq, a country that did not do us any harm. And I'm going to show you the next clip where Dick Cheney in 1994, where he had it right. When they asked him, why don't we go to Iraq and get this guy out, Saddam Hussein? In 1994, he had it right, and he had it, and that's exactly why we should not have went in 2003. When Dick Cheney was the one who was pushing for the war, listen to him in 1994, what he said, and then right after that, you will see in 2004 during one of the vice president debates with John Edwards. But the first one is from 1994, where Dick Cheney says why we should not go and occupy Iraq. Why should we not go all the way to Baghdad? Let's do it.
I am. Oh, UN forces should have moved into Baghdad?
No.
Why not?
Because if we'd gone to Baghdad, we would have been all alone. There wouldn't have been anybody else with us. It would have been a U.S. occupation of Iraq. None of the Arab forces that were willing to fight with us in Kuwait were willing to invade Iraq. Once you got to Iraq and took it over and took down Saddam Hussein's government, then what are you going to put in its place? That's a very volatile part of the world, and if you take down the central government in Iraq, you can easily end up seeing pieces of Iraq fly off. Part of it the Syrians would like to have to the west. Part of eastern Iraq the Iranians would like to claim, fought over for 8 years. In the north, you've got the Kurds, and if the Kurds spin loose and join with the Kurds in Turkey, then you threaten the territorial integrity of Turkey. It's a quagmire if you go that far and try to take over Iraq. The other thing was casualties. Everyone was impressed with the fact that we were able to do our job with as few casualties as we had. But for the 146 Americans killed in action and for their families, it wasn't a cheap war. And the question for the president in terms of whether or not we went on to Baghdad and took additional casualties in an effort to get Saddam Hussein was how many additional dead Americans is Saddam worth? And our judgment was not.
And these connections, I want the American people to hear this very clearly. Listen carefully to what the Vice President is saying, because there is no connection between Saddam Hussein and the attacks of September 11th, period. The 9/11 Commission has said that true. Colin Powell has said it's true. But the Vice President keeps suggesting that there is. There is not. And in fact, any connection with Al-Qaeda is tenuous at best.
Mr. Vice President, you have 90 seconds to respond.
The Senator's got his facts wrong. I have not suggested there's a connection between Iraq and the 9/11.
With respect to 9/11, of course, you've had the story that's been public out there. The Czechs alleged that Mohammed Atta, the lead attacker, met in Prague with a senior Iraqi intelligence official 5 months before the attack.
We have no evidence that Saddam Hussein was involved with September 11th. What the Vice President said was that he has been involved with Al-Qaeda.
Now, such meetings were regular.
All right, good. We're not going to go to that segment because we are running out of time. But quagmire, he called it a quagmire back in 1994. That's why we should not go. to Iraq. That's why we did not go in 1994. Actually, 1992 when we went in there and got Saddam, got Iraq out of Kuwait. But in 1994, he was asked why we didn't go all the way. And he said it. None of the Arabs will be with us, no coalition, and we did not have anybody go with us. We went alone this time. Even though the British sent a couple of thousands and South Koreans were sent about 200 medical personnel and other countries sent 20 here and 30 there, but what it boils down to is United States occupation of Iraq. It is not coalition and is not the coalition of the willings. Everybody who went with us was coerced to go. Why was it? Was going to be a quagmire if we went to Iraq, because right now it is a quagmire. Right now these pieces of Iraq that he was talking about flying off were the Kurds to the north, and then the Shiites, and then the Sunnis, and the Iranians, and the Turks, and that's exactly what's going on now. Why they had brains in 1992, and then in 2003 that brain was evaporated. You see what these people are doing? They're not driving. Somebody else is giving them the route to drive on. That's what it boils down to. Because if it was not an American interest back then, when we, by the way, if we would have went in 1992 and 93, if we would have went and occupied Iraq, well, we were in a war with Iraq. We got them out of Kuwait, and that was an opportunity. But we did not do it because it was not in our best interest. It was not in our best interest in 2003. And right now, it is destroying our economy, basically destroying the world. What happened on 2001, what happened on September 11, 2001, that gave these people not the right, but the opportunity to go and attack Iraq, we are paying for it now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we don't have much time left. But, I hope you are enjoying the new format, and we will go back and bring you guests and experts to talk to you. But I feel that we probably doing more. It's going to be a combination of what we are doing now, where we will bring you information you will see, and we will have a pleasure of telling you we told you so, and what is happening. Right now, we are in a big mess, and they want to drag us to Iran. Joe Lieberman wants to drag us to Iran. Be careful. Let's not do it. Let's not put this man in office. And let's take a look back at what that gentleman is doing on the side of me. How you doing?
Good.
Good?
Yes.
You enjoying this, or are you bored?
I'm bored.
You bored?
Yes.
Or would you rather be like, watching, what do you like to watch? Let's see, what's your favorite show? Besides current issues, I mean. So what do you like to watch? You are a very famous person now. Yeah, but you're going to have to talk to me, though.
I don't know.
You don't know what you like to watch?
Mm-mm.
You watch TV. What's your favorite show? George? What's that monkey thing?
You just said his name.
Yeah, but what is the name of the show?
George.
George?
Yes.
Okay. What's the other? You have one at home that you dress him up, don't you?
Yeah.
What do you dress him up as?
A firefighter.
Firefighter?
Yes.
You always say when you grow up, you want to be a firefighter.
Yes.
Why?
Because...
Because what?
Who don't have control over their emotion and their